So, good afternoon, everybody. My presentation will not be about the research, but rather about a certain technical application which originated, of course, in the research. So it's about the drought and its monitoring in Slovakia, and this was prepared by myself together with my colleague from Slovak Hydrometeorological Institute. I will not start with the drought. This is a certain search which I made over the publications, EA reports, scientific articles, and EU projects in the year of 2000 and 2010. In 2000, we were quite sure we have to mitigate the climate change impacts and the climate change as itself. So the proportion or the ratio of the number of the scientific outputs, say, was 10 to 1. Mitigation to adaptation. In 2010, we realized we didn't do anything, and it is very difficult to do anything with the mitigation of the climate change. So we have to adapt. So the ratio is like 1 to 1, and I wonder what will be in 2020. Actually, drought issues and monitoring of drought belongs to a certain family of adaptations to the climate change of nowadays. So this is about Slovak portfolio. The main water users is the industry, water mains, and agriculture. On the other hand, drought information customers portfolio is a little bit different. Mostly farmers and agricultural plants, different type of cooperatives are asking for the information about the drought. Not only about the drought, but drought is probably the first point for them. So when we started to put attention to some adaptations to the climate change, we were able to persuade the government to issue and ministry to issue some decrees. The first two happened in 2014 about the adaptation strategy and a certain framework to renew the hydromelioration in Slovakia. And the last one was issued in March this year, and it is dedicated actually to the drought action plan to manage the impacts of drought and water scarcity. A few words about the Slovak agriculture. It's a small business. It occupies less than 2 million of hectares. It's about 10% less than it was 30 years ago. And actually agriculture production forms about 4 to 5% of the GDP. So it is not the big business for the country regarding the financials and general production. We recognized quite strong changes in agriculture production after we entered the EU. At first, it was a certain decrease in the production of cereals, potato, legume, and vegetable, and the increase in the production so-called technical crops, mostly oil-producing crops. But what is the common feature is that mostly rainfed production is going on and the irrigation level went drastically down. This is the description of what happened. So in the late socialism, say, we irrigated more than 300,000 of hectares, and we used almost 300 million of cubic meters of water for this irrigation. In 2005, or since 2005, it's about 50 to 60,000 of hectares, and say 15 times less water is used for the irrigation. So we are really stuck with the rainfed production. This is a very rough description of drought development in Slovakia. This is SPEI index being applied for the period since the beginning of the previous century, and we can see a certain accumulation of drought events in the recent 15 years. Nevertheless, in 2010, we experienced the wettest year in the period of the observation, which is 150 years. So we can admit that the extremity is a little bit rising. So what do we monitor? Like 3 years ago, we monitored only precipitation totals. And after the drought occurred, we made a certain evaluation, so it was a certain past casting, say. Since 2015, we started to monitor meteorological drought, which is based on the drought indices, the standard drought indices SPI, SPEI, and CMI. Then we applied the soil drought monitoring. It's a certain integrated system which is based on a model developed by Czech Academy of Science. And we also monitor something what we can call hydrological drought, and it is based on a near real-time discharge compared to a certain reference period, 30 years period. This is a certain projection of the drought in Slovakia, what can happen. So we calculated the frequency of drought for the 50 years, 61 to 2011, and we made a projection based on two scenarios, KNMI and MPI. The expression is here just for the KNMI, but the results were quite comparable, quite similar. For the next 50 years, I mean 2001 to 2050 and 51 to 2100. So I'm not going to annoy you with the numbers in the table. Nevertheless, in general, drought frequency regarding the moderate drought slightly will decrease according to these results. Severe drought will slightly increase, and we didn't find any big changes in extreme drought. The classification was done based on a certain classification scale towards the evaluated drought indices. I think that Georgia showed us a certain scale before for SPEI. So regarding the meteorological drought, we got 42 stations which are evaluated on a weekly basis, and the expression is done. The expression is done in the graphs. So if you click on the station, you will see the graph and the description about the severity of the drought at the moment. This is the system how to evaluate the hydrological drought. Again, we have more than 200 so-called profiles. Actually, we have hydrological stations, and everything is calculated towards the reference period from 81 to 2010. Again, everything is expressed at the station or local level towards a certain locality in graphs. Regarding the soil drought, is a certain different attitude. We started in 2015, as I told you, and what is a strong point of this monitoring is the fact that it's not the national-based system. We cooperate with the Czech Academy of Science, and also this system covers a certain part of Austria. So this is the cooperation actually of three countries. And everything is based on the Czech model, but the applications were done according to the production and according to the orography and further features in the next two countries. So this is one of the products of this system. It is the intensity of drought when the real situation is compared to the reference period 61 to 2010. And everything is done and calculated for the grids 500 meters per 500 meters, and it is expressed in two layers, up to 40 centimeters and from 40 centimeters to 100 meters. This is another product which is relative soil humidity. So the recent situation is not compared to any average or normal. It is compared to the water field capacity. So the expression is in percentage again. And this is also done on the weekly base and for two soil layers. We can choose either the maps for the whole Slovakia, or we applied also the, say, district level, and we stick with NUTS 4, which is the classification of the European Commission. Probably some of you are familiar with that. On the top of that, we do calculate so-called cumulative stress. This is actually the time during which the relative soil humidity is below 50%. This is considered to bring the stress in general to any kind of plants. So we can see here the present situation, but also the situation for the last 3 months or from the beginning of the year. There are more possibilities which can be set up. Well, so this is the calculation, and we don't know where we are. So we wanted to know where we are, so we started to cooperate with farmers. And we set up a certain promotion activities. We elaborated a certain questionnaire which is put on the website, and the farmers are filling this questionnaire each week. So this is also weekly based activity. There are about 25 questions, like how do you consider the last week to the last but one regarding the wetness of the soil? How do you consider that? What impact do you expect on cereals, on vegetable, on whatever? Yeah, and based upon these questionnaires and answers, we will evaluate, or we will try to put it together with our calculation, because I'm very much sure that we are mistaken in many ways. And they are as well, because they are much more scared what will happen than we are, of course. We do monitor, but they are based on the production. So in May of 2018, we got so far 43 reporters from 32 districts, but we do cooperate with Slovak Agriculture and Food Chamber, and we hope to actually to cover all the country, except of some mountain regions. So what is the plan? Actually, the main aim is to mitigate the negative consequences of the drought, not to mitigate the climate change. We are not able. Yeah. So these are the 3 measures or 3 points. One is preventive, another one operational, and we have to have a certain crisis management. What is the role of this monitoring service? At first, to improve it. Yeah. How? To bring higher density of climatological and hydrological stations, and to deploy, if possible, into the operation the lysimetric stations. At the moment we run 2 lysimetric stations, which is actually not that much important. Further to that, they are very close each to other, so it's not usable in the operational. We need also to arrange the national reporting network, I mean the connection to the farmers. Yeah, and we would like to model a certain forecast of the crop yields regarding towards the historical impacts which happened and what is going on around the moisture condition. All the system is under a certain upgrade now within a project, Drought. I think somebody is going to talk about that. I saw it in the program. I don't know who.
Tomorrow.
Probably tomorrow, yeah. So this is a system which is operational and which works well. Nevertheless, there are gaps and challenges. First big gap we have is we do not know about the soil conditions. We know. Actually, it's not about the soil conditions. It's about so-called hydro limits. It means the wilting point and the field capacity, at least these two measures. We got the maps which are gridded, I think, 10 per 10 kilometers. And it's very difficult to downscale it to 500 meters per 500 meters. It's not the interpolation, it's rather the estimation, say. Another point is that we didn't employ so far the underground water table. We know very little about the water table in the operational. It is monitored. We have more than 1,000 points in Slovakia, but this is monitored within 1 month, actually, time step, so it's very difficult to use it probably for the general estimation, but not in the operational. And the third point is climate change. Climate change in the respect that actually in the lowlands the snow cover almost disappeared in Slovakia. On the foothills it's a little bit better, but just a little bit better, and the situation is stable in the mountains, over 800 meters above the sea level, and this is actually the level where the agricultural production stops. Yeah, we have very few examples of any production over 800 meters. And as it is happening now, so all the hydrological cycle is touched because we do not have any accumulation of water in the snow cover, or much lower than it was before. And in spring, actually, we have no water flow from the mountains because all the water, or big part of the water, has already gone during the winter because of rain and not snow. So this is the problem, and probably some more problems will occur. Well, so this is all. Thank you for your attention, and if possible, Branka, you can put some actual data. Just one example, nothing more. So this is the recent calculation for actually Sunday. So recent situation regarding the drought in Slovakia is not bad. Only this part of Slovakia and partially here and here is affected by drought. Yeah, this is a drought scale here. Yeah, but it's okay now.
Can we run this?
Sorry?
Can we run this on this?
Yes, you can.
We can.
Yeah, you can run it.
Expected intensity drop.
A certain. What I didn't say that further to the monitoring, we do also 1 week prediction of drought. Based upon the assembly forecast from ECMWF, there is a certain calculation made for the next 7 days. It's questionable if it is proficient or not, but we do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Pavol.